Oh God, what a mess. Yeah, but then we wouldn't have it any other way now, would we? This is the Man-Made Cave, episode 1. My name's Andre, and I hope you enjoy the episode. So I had a question to ask you guys. What do you think is the biggest threat to the Second Amendment? If you had to pick one that was the absolute biggest threat, what do you think it'd be? I'm gonna go with complacency, and this episode is going to kind of explain why. The simple lack of exercising the Second Amendment could be its downfall. And it's not necessarily unexercised because people don't have knowledge about it. If people assume that the government and police are just going to protect them, take care of them no matter what, most of the people watching this video know better. Two years ago, I didn't know anything about guns. I really didn't care either. I didn't know anything about gun laws. I barely knew that we had a Second Amendment. As a matter of fact, I couldn't have even told you what number was our right to keep and bear arms. Hell, I didn't even know the part about the militia. I think that's the mentality, I think that's the mindset of most of the United States citizens. Good law-abiding citizens who simply don't know better might see a man walking down the street with a gun on the side of his belt and call the police. Simply because they're not aware of their rights. And they're not aware that it's just someone exercising their rights in most situations. It's not something you see in a lot of areas. 2 years ago, if I saw that on my street, I would have assumed that the man was up to no good. If I saw just a regular guy walking down the street with a gun on the side, well, I know if you keep walking, there's a school. It's a middle school down my street. It's further than 10,000 feet, which I believe is the legal limit for carrying a gun without a proper license, but it's further than that. I wouldn't have known numbers. I don't think of numbers back then. But there's also a 7-Eleven if you turn the right direction. Could have just been going to the 7-Eleven, you know. We like our coffee. If I saw that, unfortunately, I'm ashamed to say it, I may have freaked out and called the police. And then that brings over the whole scenario, which you see all over YouTube. Persons legally carrying, they get confronted by the police. It's inconvenient for both parties. The police are just trying to do their jobs, and the man's just trying to exercise his rights, or woman. And, you know, then the man or woman and the viewers look down upon the cops because the cops they're infringing on his rights, and they're trying to have a power trip, when most cases, even though it doesn't seem like that in the video, they're just trying to get on with their day. They're just trying to get the encounter over with. And, you know, in situations where a man who's done nothing wrong refuses to identify himself, most of the time that brings up suspicion. And then the situation just escalates. He doesn't have to identify himself. He did nothing wrong. He has his right to privacy. They want to identify him to make sure that he's a good, upstanding guy. You see the dilemma? So I think that the simple fact that a lot of us are not aware of our rights and the laws can be the biggest downfall to the Second Amendment. You don't see people carrying guns as much as you used to. Two main reasons. One, concealing, I believe, to be a lot more intelligent. Nothing against you guys who carry openly. I understand that you're usually just doing it to exercise your right, and that is fine. I may try it sometime if I move to Arizona. I believe that it's a bad idea in general. It kind of paints a target on you, but that is your prerogative. If you like open carrying, then more power to you. But that's one reason why you don't see it a lot, I believe. But the second reason, I think, would be comfort levels. Whereas most of us don't want to make our neighbors uncomfortable. We want to protect ourselves and our family, our friends, our neighbors, our property, but we don't want people to be uncomfortable in the process. So you'll tend to conceal. You usually won't tell anyone about it because, I mean, a lot of it's not really a good idea to go bragging about, oh, I bought this gun, it's so cool. Nobody really wants to do that. And so your neighbors, they don't know you have a gun. You do, and you're law-abiding. Maybe you've had it for years, never had an incident, never needed to bring it out, thank God. But if one day you just decided to open carry, just walk out your front door, your neighbor's not used to seeing, they're like, why is my neighbor carrying a gun all of a sudden? What's going on? I better call the cops. There could be something wrong. You see, this is probably what happens most of the time. You have two law-abiding citizens, one who's concerned because he's seeing a gun, he doesn't know any better, and one who's just exercising his rights. So it gets done less. You don't want to make your neighbors uncomfortable. You don't want to deal with the cops coming out and having to go through that whole process over and over. So you carry concealed, and then nobody sees guns, and then people assume that nobody has guns, and that's the way it's supposed to be. There's only like two groups of people who could care less if we lost our Second Amendment rights. The first one's going to be criminals. Okay, they're not following laws anyway, so a million gun laws isn't going to stop them. If we lost the Second Amendment, they're going to keep their guns, and we're not. And the second group of people is just the people who don't care about guns. They've never had a need to protect their family. They've been fortunate enough to never come in a situation where it's been needed. And hopefully that happens for everyone, but they don't see a need to have a firearm to defend themselves. And there are plenty of other ways to defend yourself, but guns, for the most part, will just end a crime, and in a lot of cases prevent it. They're a deterrent before they're a weapon. That's my opinion. I could be wrong in a lot of people's eyes. So as it's a thing that's just not seen more often, people believe that's the way it's supposed to be, and it's a lot easier for legislatures and politicians to get rid of it because the majority of the population doesn't see it, and they feel that they're not supposed to see it. They're not made aware of the Second Amendment rights, or they just don't care, and they'll vote. When an icon that they relate with comes up on the television and says guns are bad, they're going to be like, well, they're a big important person. They must know what they're talking about. Guns are bad. I think guns are bad anyways. Until a criminal breaks down their back door one day, comes in, and God knows what happens. Just the other day, Oklahoma, a 12-year-old girl was home alone. Man rang her doorbell. She didn't answer it. He went around the back, kicked in the back door. She ran, hid in her closet, called her mom. Her mom told her, get the gun, and call the police. So she got the gun, she called the police. And like they always say, the police, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. And the man found her in a closet. She shot him. He took off. God only knows what he would have done to that 12-year-old girl if she didn't have that gun. If that was California, the parents would have been arrested under the age of 16 if a minor obtains a firearm in the state of California. The parents would be held responsible, and they would have been taken to jail. Now, likely in that situation, I'm sure that the judge by 12 would have overlooked it and let it go. But that's just a big hassle for nothing. So, what's your thoughts? What do you think is the biggest threat to the Second Amendment? And close out on one more thing here. Is before you knew anything about weapons and firearms, gun laws, before you really knew about your right, if you saw someone walk down your street for the first time, you just saw him with a gun, but you didn't know any better, you didn't realize that was legal, what would you have done? You have to be honest, too, with this, because I think that's what happens a lot. I honestly think that's what happens a lot. A law-abiding citizen who doesn't know about guns, sees a gun, freaks out. It can happen. It happens all the time. We know better. we probably wouldn't have freaked out. What would you have done? Thank God for our forefathers, and I'll see you guys in another episode.